Hi, the place we are going to cover today is notorious to have caused more than 10 incidents over the years. Covering all the incidents in a single video is not possible in a short amount of time. Hence, I will upload them in multiple parts, so make sure you have subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss the upcoming parts. Okay, now let's begin. Port Noarlunga, a suburb that lies 30 kilometers south of the city of Adelaide, Australia. Once created as a seaport, it now serves as a popular holiday destination for tourists worldwide. The primary attraction in this beautiful seaside suburb is its beach with crystal clear waters and mainly. This is popularly called the Port Noarlunga Reef. It is a 1,600 meter long natural reef made of consolidated Pleistocene sandstone formation that lies roughly 400 meters offshore. It runs parallel to the sandy beach. The reef gets exposed during low tide. A perfect destination for spending quality time, diving, swimming, snorkeling, and fishing. The straight jetty opened in 1921 connects the reef to the shore, and it has a 6-meter high vertical metal ladder at the end for easy access to this ideal diving platform. There is a trail that is marked by 12 plaques that guide divers to the different sections of the reef and underwater marine life. It starts next to the seaward end of the jetty, travels along the inside of the reef, through the gap, and then north along the outside of the reef back to the jetty. The water is around 12 meters deep on the seaside of the reef, and under the jetty, it is about 7 meters deep. The area is quite sheltered and underwater visibility can exceed 15 meters on pleasant days. The reef is a marine reserve and is home to various species of relatively tame animals, enticing many underwater photographers every summer. Several hundred meters to the south of the jetty, the reef is broken by a 300-meter wide area of water called the Gap, where the depth is almost 20 meters. Divers reach this area by walking along the reef when it is fully exposed at low tide, but when the sea is breaking over the rocks, the more intrepid divers snorkel out from shore, either from the open beach or under the jetty. The Gap has a great aquatic life inside it. Stunning huge schools of silver drummer, solitary long-nosed boarfish, sweep, many species of leatherjacket, blue grouper, magpie perch, zebrafish, and more. Colors abound with beautiful sponges, ascidians, and corals. Huge gorgonian fans catch nutrients in the current and many varieties of algae complete the scene. The reef is a very beautiful place under ideal conditions, but it has its bad days. The Gap can be very rough when the tide changes and big swells can sometimes break over the otherwise dry exposed reef area without warning. Divers need to be aware of these hazards and must always keep an eye on the incoming waves. Unfortunately, because so many people of all levels of experience diving here, the reef has claimed quite a few lives. A total of 10 people have died in the area since 1950, resulting in the area sometimes being called the killing ground of South Australia. The earliest accident at Port Noarlunga was the only case involving rebreathing equipment and was also the first diving fatality in South Australia. On Friday, the 28th of December 1951, 33-year-old John and his brother Pat decided to go spearfishing, and they invited a non-diving neighbor, Arnold, along with as a line tender. John and Pat intended to use rebreather devices of some kind, possibly World War II firefighters units, and old gas masks for face masks, which had been modified in some way. The trio walked southwards along the reef to the inside edge of the Gap, and Pat and John commenced their dive in about 6 meters of water. The tide was low and conditions were good at first. John was undertaking probably his very first dive, and he held onto the safety line which was controlled by Arnold from the reef. After a while, John surfaced and swam back to the rocks. He was turning blue with the cold and the tide was starting to come in, so Arnold advised him to warm up in the sun before diving again. John decided that he would do his last dive without a break because the deteriorating water conditions indicated that they were running out of time. As he entered the water again, Arnold asked him to be more specific with the line signals, as the waves interfered with his interpretations. John acknowledged and descended about 6 meters to the south of his brother. A short while later, Arnold received a sharp pull on the line and hauled it in to help him to the surface. When John appeared, Arnold reached down to assist him out of the water. As Arnold waved his hand in front of his face mask, John suddenly jerked back and fell into the water, releasing the safety line. Arnold was very surprised about this action and thought that he might have dropped his spear gun and had gone down to find it. As the minutes ticked by, However, he began to get worried but thought better of his impulse to jump blindly into the choppy water for fear of landing on John or his spear gun. Pat surfaced a short time later, and when Arnold told him what had happened, he immediately swam across to the area where John was last seen and dived. Pat quickly found his body sitting on a rocky ledge in an upright position about 3 meters below the surface, so he tied the line to him and surfaced. Arnold then helped him to haul John's body back onto the reef, which was now partially underwater. Arnold ran back to the jetty to get help while Pat tried to administer mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but the waves kept crashing over the reef and moved John's body about, making his efforts futile. After summoning help, Arnold tried to return to Pat, but was washed off the reef and had to be rescued by the local lifesavers. John never responded to resuscitation attempts and the primary cause of his unconsciousness was never determined, although factors such as hypothermia, anoxia, and exhaustion could have contributed to his death. The next incident occurred on Sunday, the 13th of August, 1961. 47 years old, Maxwell had gone to the reef to try out his new wetsuit and to do some spearfishing whilst using scuba. Maxwell had only performed about half a dozen dives since he was trained in November 1960. He took his young son and his son's friend with him, and the youngsters stayed near the boat ramp to the north of the jetty while Maxwell entered the sea at about 2 p.m., towing a small buoy that had a diver's flag attached. The water was calm but the visibility was poor, and he was last seen swimming approximately 200 meters out. His son had no diving knowledge and only became concerned about 4 hours later, when his father had not returned, and the sun was about to set. Fearing that something had happened, his son went to the nearby lifesavers club rooms and raised the alarm. Some lifesavers boarded a small boat and went out to the buoy. It was attached to Maxwell by a thin cord, but the line broke when they pulled on it, so they left the buoy and notified the authorities. The police squad commenced a search with underwater sleds early the next morning and located Max's body in 5 meters of water about 10 minutes later. It was 150 meters offshore and sitting in an upright position, with both arms and legs out straight. The divers noticed that Max was wearing 2 weight belts, and after these were removed, his body immediately floated to the surface. Investigations revealed that Max had turned the scuba cylinder to the off position underwater, and it contained no air. The reserve air mechanism on the unit was situated at the bottom of the tank and was activated by turning a tap, and divers had to take care not to turn off their air supply accidentally when they wanted to turn on the reserve. The police divers theorized that Maxwell might have entered the water not realizing that the reserve had already been turned on, and turned his remaining air off when he thought he was activating the reserve. Realizing he had no air, he probably dashed for the surface but was unable to reach it in time due to his excessive weight. He wore 2 weight belts because he was uncertain of the wetsuit's buoyancy. The autopsy revealed that Maxwell had died of coronary obstruction, probably through drowning. Thank you for watching. See you next time.